New Met star Bo Bichette reported to spring training early on Thursday as he begins the transition to playing third base. How good could he be there? I think he might end up being one of the best third basemen in baseball.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On the show today, we're going to be talking about Bo Bichette. In the first segment, I want to discuss his defense. He made some comments about the transition over to third base. Carlos Mendoza talked about it as well, so we'll go through what they said and why I think he might make a smoother transition to the position than some people are giving him credit. In the second segment, we're going to talk about the bat and how Bichette stacks up against some of the other third basemen in baseball. And then in the final segment, I'm going to go through my ranking of the top 10 third basemen in the game heading into the 2026 season and where I think Bo Bichette could finish this year as he might climb up the ranks. Before we get to any of that, though, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've covered the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the #1 daily podcast on the New York Mets. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than to bet with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. So Bo Bichette is in Port St. Lucie. He's rocking a cutoff t-shirt. He's fielding ground balls. He's working with Carlos Mendoza and Kai Correa. He is ready to go, trying to learn his new position at third base. That was the big story of the day from Carlos Mendoza talking about Bichette, and then Bichette meeting with the media in blue and orange for, I guess, the second time, because they did have the introductory press conference. But they were going through what Bichette is learning and the differences between shortstop and third base. And the big talking point was timing. At third base, you have more time than you do at short. And that might seem a little bit counterintuitive because you're thinking, all right, well, it's the left side of the infield either way. It's a long throw either way. But the difference is, think about where a third baseman positions and where a shortstop positions. Francisco Lindor, a lot of times, might be standing, not too far in front of the cut of the grass so that he can maximize his range at short. Third baseman, a lot of times they might play even with the bag or a little bit behind that. And when you think about the ground balls hit to third compared to the ground balls hit to short, a lot of times the balls hit to third, it's called the hot corner for a reason. You get rockets hit over there. The toughest part about third base is fielding the baseball. It's the quick reaction time. But once you get the ball, you do have more time to make that throw. And so for Bo Bichette, that's going to be one of the big learning curves, is figuring out that timing at third base compared to shortstop. But Carlos Mendoza also talked about you have less time to throw to second because turning that double play, if you're a shortstop and you're fielding a ground ball at the middle, you're just naturally taken to the bag. But when you're at third base and you're making that third to second, obviously it's a longer throw and it's just not as natural. So there's all these nuances that Bichette has to learn. But I do think that there's a world where playing third base can complement his strengths more than people think. I don't expect this to be Alex Rodriguez moving from shortstop to third and being elite over there. That was the better shortstop of the two between him and Jeter, moving off, being deferential to Jeter. Just like I'm sure Francisco Lindor actually played third base. He'd probably be the better third baseman, just like he's the better shortstop. But with Bo Bichette playing third base, you might think, okay, well, his arm was an issue over at short. That's still going to be a problem. I don't think that's necessarily the case because, again, the timing is different. Think about the throws you had to make at shortstop. Going up the middle. You go up the middle. You got to turn, make that throw to first. You go in the hole. That is a much tougher throw to make a throw in the hole as a shortstop than just straight on. Think about even coming in on the ball. When you're starting as far back as shortstops do, and you got to come in on a chopper. Yeah, also have to make that play at third base, but think about where you field the chopper at short compared to where you're fielding a chopper at third. When you're fielding a chopper at third, you might be close to even with the pitcher's mound. It's still a tough play. It's a bang-bang play, but it's a shorter throw. Shortstop, you might be coming into the ball, and if you don't field it on the grass, you might field it just behind the cut of that part of the infield grass. You still got a decent throw over there, and the timing of it, you just have less time. So I think for Bichette, he's got to learn those nuances, but I don't think that his arm hurts him as much at third base as people think. You look at the average mile per hour on Bo Bichette's throws last year, 82.3 miles per hour. You know who else threw 82.3 miles per hour? Alex Bregman. You know who else threw right around that range? Brett Baty when he was playing third base. You think, oh, Brett Baty has a strong arm. Look, Mark Vientos throws the baseball harder than Brett Baty. But Brett Baty can often be more accurate with his arm. So really what it comes down to for Bo Bichette is learning that throw. And I think it's an easier throw for him than what was happening over at short. For him, if it's quick reaction, whether it's you're diving to your left and right, you get up on your feet, you fire, all right, or it's hit right at you, you field it, you gather, you fire. There's the throw coming in, which again would be easier than the throw coming in as a shortstop. I just think that the arm strength is not something I'm too worried about for Alex Bregman, but Bregman's the example of why I'm not worried about it for Bichette. I think his arm is plenty strong enough. Now, he's not going to have elite range, even at third base, but his range will be better at third than it was at short. Last year, he was minus 13 outs above average as a shortstop. Now, he hasn't had seasons as bad as this one. He actually, by outs above average, was solid in 2024. He was actually worth 1 out above average. The bat went away, but he actually did field the position fairly well in 24. 2023 was minus 3 outs above average, 4 defensive runs saved. So it's not like this guy's always been awful defensively. Yes, last year it was pretty brutal, but minus 8 of that minus 13 outs above average came from moving laterally. So moving either towards first or towards third. So I don't know if at third base you are going to be penalized as much for your lack of range. Probably not as much at all. And then another minus 4 came from coming in on the ball. Now he's still going to have to come in on the ball from third, but one of the things that Bichette was mentioning today is that it's less east to west and it's more north-south at third. And what he's been best at throughout his career is going back on the ball. So now at third base, I think he has a chance to play into his strengths defensively. And I'm not saying this guy's going to win a Gold Glove, but I don't think he's going to be minus 13 outs above average. I think there's a good chance that Bo Bichette ends up settling into being maybe slightly below average, but even potentially an average defensive third baseman. And you never know the power of a contract year, what that can do for a guy. If he's able to go through this season, and let's say he posts 2 outs above average and 1 defensive run saved, he's just solid over there, but slightly above average. And he hits the way that Bo Bichette can hit. Next off season, he hits the market without the qualifying offer as the top third baseman on the market by a mile. And all of a sudden, Bo Bichette might be looking at a $300 million contract. So he has all the incentive to put it all together. He's a longtime shortstop moving to third base. It's an easier position. Yes, he's got to learn it, but I think throughout spring training, he'll get there. And what helps him a lot, helps the Mets a lot, is you aren't just counting on him to carry the defense in the infield. You have Lindor, you have Semien. So those guys up the middle, I think, take some of the pressure off the guys at the corners. But I really don't think that Bichette's going to have a super difficult time there. I think he can learn this position throughout spring training. I think he's going to be a lot better over there than some people are giving him credit for. So that's the defensive side of things. But we know that the Mets didn't sign Bo Bichette for his glove. They signed him for his bat. And he already went opposite field off Freddie Peralta today, hit a home run, showing what he can do. I'm going to talk about the offensive profile for Bo Bichette next and how he compares to some of the other top third basemen in baseball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you are anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense, from medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sport you care about most. FanDuel is going to give you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches can start slow and then somehow it gets intense fast. You have speed skating races that can be decided by inches, hockey games that feel different from the opening face-off. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, Play your game. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 16,000 subscribers by opening day. All right, let's talk a little bit about the bat side of things for Bo Bichette. Among primary third basemen last year who got at least 400 plate appearances, and there were 28 of them, where do you think Bo Bichette would have ranked in batting average? Number one, he would have led all third basemen in batting average by around 25 points. He trailed only Jose Ramirez and Alex Bregman in terms of on-base percentage, and it was only by 3 points. He had a 357 on-base percentage. They both were at 360. His slug of 483 would have been fourth behind Junior Caminero, Eugenio Suarez, and Jose Ramirez. His WRC plus, which is weighted runs created plus, measures hitters on a league average of 100. His 134 WRC plus, which was 34% better than your league average hitter, that would have edged out Jose Ramirez for the best mark at that position. So let me say that again. In an all-encompassing offensive metric that gives us a baseline of 100 is average, and anything above that is how much better you are by percentage than a league average hitter. Bo Bichette would have been last year, if he played third base, the best offensive third baseman in baseball by WRC plus. Now, I'd still probably take Jose Ramirez because of the home runs and the stolen bases and everything he brings to the table. But it just shows you how much potential there is with Bo Bichette's bat, even playing up more potentially at third base, because suddenly the shortstop position, I think, is deeper than third base. So he could stand out more as a third baseman than he did at shortstop, especially if the defense takes up a little bit at third. Now, if you look at wins above replacement, he would have been tied with Eugenio Suarez and Manny Machado for the fourth best mark in baseball. His 94 RBIs would have been fourth best as well. All of that while only playing 139 games. So if he were to play 150 games, he could drive in even more runs. And the clutch stats are crazy for Bichette. We talked about these when he signed. In high leverage situations, he hit 392, 444 on base. 448 on base. I skipped him a couple points. And a 667 slug for an OPS well over 1,100 even. A 207 WRC plus, 107% better than your league average hitter in high leverage situations. When there was runners in scoring position, he hit 381. When there was men on base, he hit 329. When nobody was on, he hit 298. Last year, we saw the Juan Soto pop for Pete Alonso. He drove in 126 runs, second most of his career to 2022. Bo Bichette's career has 102 RBIs. I think he smashes that this year. If he plays 150 games, I think Bo Bichette gets to 120 himself, honestly. He's going to be batting third behind Juan Soto. Juan Soto now is a base stealer, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities where all Bo Bichette has to do is get a base hit, and he could drive in a run. So I absolutely think that we're going to see a huge offense this season from Bichette. If he can grade out as above average at third base defensively, I mean, this is going to be a really complete player. One other thing to note before we look at where Bichette would stack up against the other top third baseman in baseball. Do you know how rare it is for the New York Mets to have a 300 hitter? Look at the last decade. There's one guy who's hit over 300. One. Jeff McNeil. That's it. End of list. McNeil did it in 2022 when he won the batting title at 326. He did it in 2018, 2019. He flirted with it a lot, too. He was in the 290s for a lot of seasons until the last couple of years. Jeff McNeil was obviously a great bat-the-ball hitter who would get on base a ton and really just hit for a very high average. Last couple of years, that's faded off a little bit, and hopes of getting some more power or just he's slowed down a little bit. But Bo Bichette has a chance to hit 300 and hit you 20 home runs and get on base at a 350-plus clip at least. He's got a chance to be a really great player for you. The Mets, since 2016, have had McNeil over 300. They had Marte over 290 once in 2022. And then other than that, those are the only two guys who even hit over 290. You look at guys that hit over 280. There's Drupal Cabrera and Yoenis Cespedes each do it in 2016. They both hit exactly 280. By the way, great season by Drupal Cabrera. 23 homers, a 120 WRC plus, 3.4 FWAR, he was the best player by WAR on a playoff team. So shout out to his Dribble Cabrera, who also hit 280 on the nose again in 2017. Wilson Ramos hit 288 in 2019, and Med Rosario hit 287 in 2019. So all told, over the past decade, there's only been 7 hitters who have hit over 280. Starling Marte is the only one not named Jeff McNeil to hit over 290. So that's going to be a different component that we have not seen. And with Juan Soto, you have a chance to have 2 guys who could hit over 300 right at the top of that lineup, batting second and third. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see the way those guys can produce runs. But what I want to talk about in the final segment today is, how does Bo Bichette stack up against his contemporaries now over at third base? And could he eventually become one of, if not the best third baseman in all of baseball? Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. If you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move, because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. That's what I like about Indeed. With Just Baseball, when we've used it, it allows you to get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves you time because you don't have to spend all the energy sorting through all the mismatches. With sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by the candidates who are actually a fit. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show are going to get $75 in sponsored job credit to help your job reach that premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now it's time to take it up a level. Go ad free. Join the Everyday Club. You're going to get Locked On Mets without the interruptions. You get access to our Discord channel, so you can chat with other Mets fans. You also get access to a merch shop. If you want to be part of our Everyday Club, you can find a link in the episode description, or you can go to lockedonmets.supercast.com. So we just recently at Just Baseball ranked the top 10 players at each position, or we're in the middle of doing it. Actually, tonight after done with this show, I have to make the shell for our writers on our top 20 quarter outfielders. But again, and by the way, Juan Soto, I think, is either 2 or 3 on that list behind, Aaron Judge. But when it comes to third baseman, the list is complete. In our top 10, well, we'll go 1 through 8 because that brings us to Bo Bichette, and that's what I took notes on here. We got Jose Ramirez 1, Matt Chapman 2, Junior Caminero 3, Manny Machado 4, Alex Bregman 5, Austin Riley 6, Michael Garcia 7, and Bo Bichette 8. But how we come to those rankings as a company, so we have a panel, and that panel is myself and our other 3 editors, so there's 4 of us, as well as the 3 hosts of the Just Baseball show and their producer. So 8 of us voted this year on our top 15 third basemen. And then we take the composite score of all the rankings, and that is our list. So my list of the top 10 third basemen in baseball is a lot different than the list that we had as a company. I had Bo Bichette 7, so not far off. But I had a drastically different top 3. I had Jose Ramirez. That's the same thing. Everybody had Jose Ramirez 1 because he has been the best third baseman in baseball for a decade. I had Junior Caminero 2. I had Michael Garcia, who was ranked 7th on our list at number 3. I was the high guy there. And then I had Bregman, Chapman, Machado before I got to Bichette at 7th, ahead of Austin Riley at 8th. Now, for me, the reason why I had Junior Caminero 2nd, because the guy hit 46 home runs last season while playing slightly below average defense at third base. But he's going into his age 22 season, coming off a 4.5 win year. And I just think there's a chance that he could hit 50 bombs, improve the defense, and be a 6-win player. I think the ceiling for Junior Caminero is maybe higher than anybody at the position, even potentially higher than Jose Ramirez, which sounds crazy because Jose Ramirez could flirt 40-40. But Junior Caminero at 22 years old just could be a rocket ship. We don't know. But there's also a chance that he has a sophomore slump. That last year was not his first year getting big league time, but it was his first full season. So you never know. Maikel Garcia, very similar. I was the high man there at number 3. That's because last year he was an all-world defender, and he has been that. Now, he's been slashing his walk rate, or excuse me, slashing his strikeout rate. You don't want to slash your walk rate. Slashing his strikeout rate, so it puts the ball in play a bunch. I think his strikeout rate last year was like 16%. His walk rate's been climbing, though, so he's now got walking at about a 10% clip. So this is a guy that gets on base. He can leverage that because he can steal bases with his speed. Hitting for a high average. He hit 16 home runs last year, and they moved the fences in Kansas City. So now maybe he can get to 20 home runs with the high floor defensively. Maikel Garcia, to me, when I was comparing him to Matt Chapman, I just felt like glove-wise, I'll take the youth in Garcia at 25 over Matt Chapman at 33. And then when it comes to the bat, yeah, maybe I think the floor is just a little bit higher with Chapman because he has more of a track record. But I like where Garcia could go. So I have Garcia 3. But when we bring this back to Bo Bichette, I think you can see either Garcia or Caminero fall back down a little bit. So if there's a world where Bichette could slide in front of one of those two guys, I think one of them at least will have a better season than Bichette, but maybe not both. And then you get to the next grouping I had: Bregman, Chapman, Machado. 3 guys getting into their 30s now. You have Alex Bregman heading into his age 32 season. Matt Chapman will be 33 this upcoming season. And Manny Machado, I believe, already is 33. So those guys, any of them could fall off. Bregman, still great. Last year, he had a 3.5 win season in 114 games, but he's going to a ballpark that does not play to his swing, unlike when he went to the Red Sox. And, of course, his entire career was spent with the Crawford boxes, where he was able to take advantage of his pull side power. It's not going to be the same thing in Wrigley. He's not going to be rewarded as much. So I could see Bregman, while still being a huge part of the Cubs, falling back a little bit. I could see Bo Bichette having a better season than Alex Bregman. Matt Chapman also is playing in a tough ballpark to hit. And yes, he's a WAR accumulator with the glove, but at 33 years old, could I see the bat falling off? Potentially. And then you get to Manny Machado, who is aging pretty gracefully at this point. He's been about the same guy the last 3 years, and that's a 3.5 to 4 win player. But Bo Bichette last year was that. And I think there's a world where this is the best season of Bo Bichette's career because he has all the incentive in the world for it to be his best season, and he's at the absolute peak age of 28 years old. He is in his prime in a way that Jose Ramirez, while Ramirez has an extended prime, he's not athletically at his peak. And neither is Bregman, neither is Chapman, neither is Machado. And for Maikel Garcia and Junior Caminero, those guys are younger, but they don't have the experience of Bo Bichette. So Bichette's in this sweet spot where, for me, if we're just talking bats at the position, I wouldn't go so bold and crazy to just flat out take Bo Bichette over Jose Ramirez. But last year, those two guys were neck and neck. And I would think that might hold true, where if you're looking at total offensive value, it's Jose Ramirez, Bo Bichette, and for me, Junior Caminero, but he's got to round out his game more than just home runs. Now, of all these guys we're talking about, the only one in this top 7 that I had that isn't a great defender is Caminero. All the other guys are really solid at the position. But if Bo Bichette can get to the point where he's about league average, I mean, Machado's probably not great or not elite anymore. I didn't look at the defensive metrics exactly, but based on the offensive numbers that he had and the WAR total, I assume it's not the best. I mean, you can make a case if Bo Bichette can just be average there, and he could be the best bat at the position, taking advantage of hitting behind Juan Soto, there's a world where Bo Bichette could easily be a top 5 third baseman in baseball if just one of those 3 older guys falls back and one of the 2 youngsters in Caminero or Garcia, has a little bit of a slump and can't back up their breakout. Well, now I had him at 7. That slides him right into the top 5. And I think there's a world that he can slide up beyond that. I wouldn't, again, predict that Bo Bichette's going to be the best third baseman in baseball this year. But would I think that he's going to be a top 5 third baseman? Potentially. I think he has that ability. And even if not, top 10 at the position is not bad. And I think he's very squarely within the top 10. It's just going to be a matter of what does the glove look like? Can he hold it down and not be an issue? And it's also just going to be a matter of, can he back up the season that he just had? Can he continue to hit that way and leverage? Because if he does, with the opportunities that he's going to have with the traffic in front of him on the bases, this guy, I really think, could hit 25 home runs, could drive in 120, could hit 315, can go out and be maybe an average defender at third, and can end up turning in a 5-win season that gets him to the point where he hits free agency, and he is by far and away the best free agent on the market without the qualifying offer too, which make him even more enticing. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like, and I still go back to the show where we were talking about grading the offseason and everything else this week. For me, Bo Bichette was the move that changed the narrative of this team and now has that camp in a place right now where the vibes are great. Not to say if they signed Eugenio Suarez, the vibes would suck, but I just don't think it'd be quite the level where it's at right now, where people are really excited to see what's about to come. And I personally, I think fans should be fired up that Bo Bichette showed up early to camp to get the work going, and that Jorge Polanco did as well, because those guys clearly have a little bit of a chore this offseason to figure out their new spots defensively, and they are doing everything they can to get that done and be ready to go come opening day, where this team's going to have a really good infield. So that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. Not quite sure if we'll do a show tomorrow. Pretty much depends on the news. If we don't get any news items worth discussing, I might be taking a day off. I also won't be around throughout the day. So I know I have been jumping in live a little bit, covering any of the latest that comes out from spring training as soon as it happens. Won't be available to do that. I will have my phone, so I can certainly throw a YouTube short up. So make sure you subscribe there so you can keep up to date with all the other news items. Also, we have a lot of good stuff going on social media now with our new intern that's working for me here. So make sure you're subscribing to obviously the YouTube channel, but also look out for us on TikTok, X, Instagram, all that good stuff. Anyway, that's going to be all for this edition of Locked On Mets. Again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network.